All right, so Venice. What makes Venice special is after Rome collapses, the Roman Empire collapses, right? These noble families, they're now impoverished. They go to different places. The city that becomes dominant in the Italian peninsula is actually Venice. Why? Because it's surrounded by marshes. So it's hard to invade. And you don't actually want to invade it because it has no resources. Its only advantage is that it's by the coast, which allows it to engage in piracy, as well as trade and diplomacy, okay? All right, so this is Venice today. And as you can see, it would be very hard to invade. Also, remember at this time, it's very poor, so no one wants to invade it. All right, another picture. Pretty beautiful, right? You guys should go before it sinks, okay? If you want to go visit Venice, do it now before it sinks. All right, so again, Venice, it's a merchant oligarchy, just like the Dutch Republic, just like England, just like America, okay? It seems like a democracy. They call themselves a republic, but it's essentially controlled by private interests, okay? All right, so because Venice has no resources, it has to engage in trade. And it's going to help set up a lot of trade networks throughout the Middle Ages. And what it's going to do that's very profitable is that it's going to import spices from East Asia back to Europe, okay? And this is going to make Venice very, very wealthy. So the two big cities are Genoa and Venice, okay? And as you can see, they are extremely energetic. They're going to set up trade networks throughout the world. This is a spice trade, and the center, of course, is in Venice. And this makes Venice the most wealthy city in Europe at some point. Okay, also remember what these small city-states do that's very effective is that they become parasites on the empire. Okay, so Venice can take its wealth and bribe imperial bureaucrats in Constantinople to give it trade preferences. Okay? And Venice will also set up alliances with also the Islamic Empire as well as the Mongols as well. Guess who is from Venice? Marco Polo is from Venice, okay? Why is Marco Polo traveling around the world? To set up new linkages for Venice, okay? So you've got all these Venetians going around the world to be spies and to explore in order to set up new networks for Venice. Because they don't have really a choice in the matter. They are a trading power. They don't have any resources on their own, so the people have to be very energetic, okay? And while this is happening, they set up these banks where the wealthy merchants can pool their resources to take more risks. Okay? Eventually, what will happen is that Venice will decline and the Dutch Republic will emerge. What makes the Dutch Republic so powerful is that it's ruled by merchants who have now adopted Calvinism. Okay? Remember, Calvinism is the faith that wealth is signals that you will go to heaven. So everyone in the Dutch Republic works really, really hard. It's a very energetic society, and they can now feed off the Spanish Empire, okay, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the Habsburgs. Why? Because the Spanish Empire, what they've done is they've gone to South America and captured a lot of gold, and it makes their people very lazy. Okay, so there are three ways in which you can take advantage of that. The first, of course, is piracy, where your ships just steal the gold as this gold is heading back to Spain. Another is just by providing industry for these people. These people don't want to work, so you just sell them clothes, okay? And this builds up the industry of France, Britain, and the Dutch Republic. The last way, of course, is probably luxury goods, especially spices, to the market. So because the Spanish Empire is so wealthy, this wealth transfers to the energy industry of the Dutch Republic. Okay? And as you can see, this is what the trade looks like. The Dutch will set up a private company called the Dutch East Indies Company, which is almost like a nation unto itself. It becomes the world's wealthiest corporation even today. Okay? And the reason why it is a monopoly over the spice trade from the East Indies. It has its own army, it has its own currency, it has its own government, okay? It can enact its own laws in the regions it controls. All right, and as you can see, the Dutch are very energetic. So as a comparison, let's compare it to the Spanish Empire, okay? So at this point in history, the Spanish Empire is the wealthiest, most largest empire in the world. But as you can see, the Dutch are much more energetic, okay? The Dutch are much more industrious. And the British are actually much more industrious as well, okay? The reason why is the Spanish are still Catholic, whereas the Dutch Republic have turned into Protestants, okay? And this allows for the growth of the middle class, because as long as you're willing to work hard, you can become wealthy. Whereas the Spanish, it's very much a society based on nobility and clerical privilege. Okay? All right. So as we discussed, the two leaders of the Protestant Reformation are Martin Luther, who proposed justification by faith. Okay? Justification by faith. You have to actually believe in God if you want to access heaven. And John Calvin, who proposed the idea of double predestination, which means that God has already decided who's going to hell, who's going to heaven, and therefore you have to prove it to yourself by working really hard, making a lot of money, and not spending it, okay? And then all this money goes to the bank, which allows for the growth of the Dutch Republic. All right. The Protestant Reformation will have many major effects on the world. It will lead to something called the 30 Years' War, when the Protestants will fight the Catholics. And this will lead to the death of millions and millions of people. In fact, this is the deadliest war in Europe right before World War I. Okay? Yeah, the war is deadly. It lasts for a long time, 30 years. It will kill millions of people. Because of the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Church is under attack. So what they decided to do is they decided to set up a secret society, basically an intelligence agency called the Jesuits. This is Loyola. You may have heard of Loyola University. So the Jesuits go around the world, set up a lot of universities and schools. But their main mission is to infiltrate Protestant societies and try to overthrow the government and try to make them more Catholic, okay? In response, so this is the system of the Jesuits. And in response, the Protestants will set something called the Freemasons. Okay, we'll discuss this later on, right? But so throughout history, at this time, there's a secret battle going on between the Jesuits and the Freemasons. And they're using all sorts of really nefarious, evil techniques, including, as we discussed, traumatizing young children so they could be spies to infiltrate other groups. Okay, because remember, at this point in history, people believe in God, so they're going to ask you, do you swear to God? And you have to, okay? And so you have to have secret identities if you are to pass their tests. Okay, so one of the crucial battlegrounds between the Jesuits and the Freemasons, the Protestants, is England, okay? Henry VIII, what he will do is he will split off from the Pope, because the Henry VIII, like most monarchs in Europe, they want to maintain their independence, their autonomy. When he dies, Queen Elizabeth I will inherit the throne, and at this point in history, there are a lot of Catholics who want to see her overthrown. So she launches this massive campaign to persecute Catholics. This will lead to many, many battles, crises between the Catholics and the Protestants. James II is a Catholic king, and the Protestant nobility don't want that. So what they will do is they'll conspire against him. In 1688, they will invite the Dutch aristocrat, William of Orange, into England to become the king. And this will lead to something called the Glorious Revolution, where now authority passes to Parliament. What Parliament will do is charge something called the Bank of England, which is, again, it's a private bank with the power of state. They can print money, okay? And this solves a huge problem because before, what happened is these private bankers would lend money to monarchs. The problem with that is the monarch could die, the monarch could be overthrown, the monarch could lose a war, the monarch could just decide not to pay you back, okay? But now, if it's Parliament that's borrowing the money, the people always have to pay you back. Okay, unless England is destroyed as a nation, your loan to the nation will always be guaranteed.